Strengthening the Black Church is an ethnic plan of the United Methodist Church, and we are tasked and are delighted to embrace the opportunities to work with local congregations, pastors, leaders, annual conferences to transform, revitalize, and nurture and build to sustained Black churches, Black leaders, Black congregations, so that we can bring a prophetic witness for Jesus Christ. And one of the ways that we do that is through our Leadership Forward program. And I want to be able to kind of welcome you and just say thank you. And I want you all to drop, since we've kind of switched from a nighttime, we usually met in the evening times with our monthly webinars. We're here every third Thursday, but we wanted to do something different and see what it would feel like, look like, what the participation would be like if we did a lunch and learn. So since it's lunchtime, it's morning time on the West Coast for some of you all, but for those of us that's in Central Time and East Coast, it is lunchtime. So I want to say thank you to Stephanie, who is behind the wheels in the back of the house. So Stephanie, thank you so much for your work with us today. And today we're going to talk a little bit about business etiquette. And we're going to talk about how important it is as leaders and as individuals. We don't often look at churches as a business. I think that more so now we're understanding the business of church. But at the end of the day, there are etiquettes in everything. We have etiquettes when you are at a fine dining restaurant. There's an etiquette when you go to the movies. There are etiquettes all around us. And so we're going to take a deep dive today with our presenter on business etiquette. What does it look like to honor your commitments? What does it look like to paying attention to small details and being a part of a team? Why are these details important when you are trying to move towards an overall goal or achievement for whatever project it is that you're working on? So we're going to take a deep dive and look at that today. Today we have Brian Valentine with us that's going to kind of walk through what it means and what it looks like for effective business etiquette. Brian hails from Columbus, Missouri, and let's bring Brian up so that we could kind of chat before we get into his presentation. Welcome, Brian. Everybody, say hi, Brian. Let me hear you in the chat. Tell Brian, hello, Brian.
Hello. How are you?
I am doing really good. How are you on this Thursday afternoon?
You know what? I'm a little nervous anytime I have to speak, but I'm doing pretty good, Toska. Thank you so much for asking.
I know, Brian, I know that you're going to take us in a deep dive. But just like I said, there are a number of different types of etiquettes, that happens. It's a time of etiquette. There's an etiquette to even coming into a Zoom room, right? There's an etiquette when you are in a meeting, a certain etiquette that we want to portray so that everyone is on the same page. Brian, everybody is saying hello to you. See, you got all these.
Everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I really am.
Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and what you do.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I am based out of Columbia, Missouri, and I work for the Missouri Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church here. And I have the great privilege of overseeing our recruitment strategies here for our conference. So that takes me literally meeting and building relationships across the state of Missouri and to some of our other bordering states. This position is relatively new for our conference office. It is definitely something different, but I've been in the business of people for over 20 some odd years in multiple capacities. So this is definitely fitting for my gifts and talents.
And you know what? You just said something, the business of people. The business of people.
The business of people.
We are all people development, right? So we're all in the business of people. Yes. And why do you think it was important for your annual conference to say, you know what, we need a people development person. We need someone that is going to really hone in and focus on strategies and tools and implementations for the people of your conference. Why was that position important?
Toska, that's a great question. And, I'm going to answer that by saying details, right? We in our society, we're very busy. And it's a whole nother presentation to challenge the level of busyness that we all are participating in. But because of that busyness, I think our conference recognized the need to be able to assemble a couple of individuals who could really give some care to some of those small details of managing relationships, being an additional voice to be able to hear clearly the needs and the wants of not only the people who participate in our churches across Missouri, but also as we think about recruitment and the needs that we have to serve our local communities through the churches, being able to have people who can be in and among the folks, building relationships, sustaining those relationships. So again, that happens in the small details, being able to reconnect through email, through consistent interactions, being involved in their everyday lives the best that we can. Again, it's about those small details.
Right. Well, we've had enough of the introduction. And I know that you have some important information that you're going to share with us, information that we will have to take away. Guys, not only are you eating your food and you are listening during this lunch and learn session, grab a pen and paper, take you some notes, and most importantly, drop your questions in the chat. And I'm going to let you take it away, Brian. Thank you so much for being here, and thank all of you all for being here for the kickoff of our fall leadership forward conversation.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to open us up real quick in prayer, guys. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this time that we get to be together. I ask, Lord Jesus, that you allow for me to decrease and that your Holy Spirit will increase. Father, I pray that we will get what you have for us today. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully I'll do this right. All right, hopefully you guys are seeing the actual PowerPoint and not my notes. If someone can just let me know that in the chat, we'll go from there. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. And a special thanks to SBC 21 for allowing me to be here. We are spending some time over our lunch hour talking about the importance of honoring your commitments. So I want to share with you guys, I think it's kind of interesting how I ended up preparing for this presentation. A couple of months back, I was in a conversation with a team member of SBC 21, and during that phone call, I think I was spending just a few too many minutes, that's probably not good English, but a little bit of time on my soapbox, frustrated about people not keeping their commitments, people not paying attention to small details. And shortly thereafter, I think after I spent that time on that soapbox, I got an invitation to do this webinar. It is important to me. It is important that we begin a conversation about what honoring our commitments looks like in the work that we do. So I'm really excited that this time that we're spending together really will just hopefully lay a beginning foundation for you guys to hopefully have a launching pad to have further conversations with yourself internally, but also with your team members, centered around the importance of what that looks like while we're executing the projects that are on our slate. So I've been a trainer in a previous life, and one of the things that I think is important is to kind of give us some questions to ponder. Like many of you, I've attended many different types of conferences, meetings, and training events, and I'll get some really great information, right? And you spend your time at that conference or that event, and you're taking copious notes, you're gathering this great information, you're hearing excellent nuggets of wisdom, you're high-fiving the other audience members, and you gather all that information, you go back to reality, back to your job, back to your everyday life. And then what happens with that information? A lot of times it ends up on a shelf collecting dust, right? Never to be looked at again, never to be implemented. So when I'm giving you guys these couple of questions here in just a moment to ponder, these questions are meant as a means for us to kind of combat that. So here's the first question. What do you hope to gain from our time together? All of us have agency. You all registered for this time together. You registered to be a part of today's workshop. And so there's something that you're probably hoping to gain from this time. What are you hoping to gain? Take a moment and just maybe kind of scribble that down, or if you're in the middle of your lunch, I understand that. Just maybe kind of take a moment to kind of think, what are you hoping to gain from our time together? The next question I have is, what do you think that you're already doing well? When you think about business etiquette, when you think about the title of the presentation of honoring your commitments, what do you already believe that you're doing well? We all are doing something well. So I want you guys to kind of think through that. And the third question that I have for you that I want for you to ponder, and I have to admit, this is my favorite question. What if your hope for today is realized? How does that new knowledge change how you work? That's a great question, isn't it? If your hope is realized for today, how does that new knowledge, how does that change how you work? I love that question because it causes us not to just continue to be consumers of information, but it also causes us to be action figures, right? We now have to do something with that new information. So those are the three questions that, as we spend these next few minutes together talking about honoring our commitments, that I want for you guys to really wrestle with. What do you hope to gain from our time together? What do you think that you're already doing well? And if your hope for today is realized, how do you see that information changing how you work? So who is Brian? I think it's always important to have a level of a peek behind the curtain as to the individual who is sharing information with you. And so very simply, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4 kids, 2 girls, 2 sons. I'm a colleague. I'm a lover of teams. I love working on a team. I love it. I love working on a team. I love infrastructure. I love processes. I love great customer service. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face than experiencing fantastic customer service. And you know why that is? Because generally someone who delivers fantastic customer service pays attention to the details, right? Love great customer service. I love lamb chops. I love food. That's who I am. That's a part of my DNA. And I share that because this particular topic of honoring your commitments really is a part of who I am. It's important to me about understanding the importance of the role that details play in how we carry out projects and how we relate to one another on a team and in other relationships outside of the workplace. So we're going to take some time over these next few minutes to really kind of dissect the idea of honoring our commitments. And we're going to use the 5 W's. Y'all remember the 5 W's, right? Those I saw in the chat that we have a few folks from Chicago. I'm originally was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I know for a fact that my cousins in Chicago, when you're in elementary school in Wisconsin, we call it elementary school. In Chicago, they call it grammar school. So you guys may remember the 5 W's from grammar school, right? That's the who, what, where, why, and when and why. It's those 5 W's that generally we utilize that to kind of dissect the plot of a story. Well, today we're going to utilize the 5 W's to really take a look at why the importance of honoring our commitments and how do we kind of break that down into these different responsibilities as to who needs to do that, what that looks like, where does it need to happen, when do we do it, and why do we do it? Okay, so we're going to first start off with the who. So who should honor their commitments? Who should honor commitments? And the short answer, guys, is everyone, right? I think a lot of times when we think about keeping commitments, immediately, I think, at least for Brian, let me speak for me, my initial reaction is to look at everybody else around me and say, they need to do better, or they need to honor their commitments. So yes, I think the very simple answer is that everyone should honor their commitments. But I want to give a special commercial break that especially us as leaders. We as leaders, we have to honor our commitments. Why? As leaders, we're charged with creating atmosphere. We're charged with setting the tone for the workplace. We're charged with setting the tone for our team members. Years ago, I worked on a team. And we had a team leader who was everywhere and anywhere. And there was just this space of chaos that we constantly endured as a team together. And it really started because that was the foundation that our team leader set. every time we got together to begin to have a conversation or to begin planning, there always seemed to be a level of chaos that ensued. And a lot of times that was centered around really the atmosphere that our leader created. So when we think about honoring our commitments, when we think about being intentional about looking and understanding all the details that are involved with the project, that is really something that lies on the shoulders of those of us who are in a position of leadership. So I want you to take a moment as you're probably chewing your food. I want you to take a second. I want you to close your eyes and envision a person that you count on. Okay. Think about someone that you know without a shadow of a doubt, you can count on them. When you pick up the phone and you have a request, you know that that individual is going to do everything that they can in order to fulfill the request that you asked of them. Okay, you got that person in mind? All right, good. I want you to now think about what are the qualities that they exhibit that make them excellent commitment keepers? What's some of those qualities? I'm not able to see the chat, but I'm gonna ask for you to drop some of those qualities in the chat. What are some of the qualities that those individuals exhibit? Loyalty is one? Yes. What's some other qualities? They're focused, they have a love of God, they're reliable, dependable. Okay, now they're coming. All right. Consistency, flexibility, respectful, supportive. Excellent ones there, Valerie. Punctual. Guys, these are all fantastic. Excellent. So we see some of these qualities kind of rise to the top that make them excellent commitment keepers, right? So here's the question for you. Of those qualities, where can you grow? Of those qualities that you've listed, where can you grow? I know that as I wrestled with putting together this presentation and talking about the importance of honoring commitments, I realized that there are some spaces that I needed to grow in. So I'm asking for us to kind of think about what are some of those qualities that you can grow in? And those are not, that's nothing that I'm expecting for anyone to share here on this platform, but I think it's important for us to personally identify what those areas are and begin to actually write them out. Write them out. Think about, these are the qualities. So maybe yours could possibly be working on being a little bit more punctual, which is something I think we all can work on, right? Maybe yours is punctual. Being more punctual in attending meetings or punctual in responding to correspondence that someone sends to you. Maybe that one's yours. I want for you guys to identify what some of those qualities are and begin to make a list for yourself and think about, okay, how can I begin to build on those and grow in those particular areas for myself? So again, when we think about who should be honoring their commitments, obviously the clear answer is everyone. But those of us who are in leadership positions, it is especially important for us because we are the ones who set the atmosphere and set the tone. All right, so then that brings us to the what. What are the small details that help you honor your commitment? So you see I have this small little graphic at the bottom of your slide. It says read, get clarity, communicate, use your resources. All right, so let's break this down, guys. So read. What do I mean by that? Read your source material. Be ready for whatever. I am flabbergasted. I have been flabbergasted at how many meetings that I have personally attended, and my colleagues and myself at times didn't spend the time necessary to read the source material to be prepared for the meeting that I'm participating in. Can any of you guys think about a meeting that you were in and you felt like you were kind of talking in circles because clearly no one had did the preparatory work necessary in order to be able to enter that conversation adequately educated for the topic at hand? I know some of you guys have experienced that. I've experienced that, right? And you left and you felt that time like, oh my gosh, what a waste of time. Okay, so that's an example of a small detail. A small detail is being ready, being intentional to read our source materials to be ready for whatever the task is at hand. The other part is that I would say in reading, in that read piece is reading your email. I sent out an email to someone just the other day, guys. They sent me an email. I responded to that email with 3 additional questions. They partially answered the first question and didn't even address the other 2 questions. How many of you guys can relate to that moment? So then I had to send another email, right? So when we think that, gosh, we're so busy, let's take my email example let's take my email situation as a great example. So that email technically should have been 3 email thread. The email they sent me responding to said email, and them giving me the information that I requested. Instead, it consists of now 5 emails. The email that they sent, me responding with the questions that I had, them giving me partial information and not answering all the questions that was in the email that I sent them. I need to now send a 4th email to reiterate the questions that I have and now wait for their response, which will be 5 emails in total. Guys, we wonder why we're so busy. A lot of times we're so busy because we haven't taken the time to read our source material and to be intentional about making sure that we've addressed and that we're ready for the conversations that we're participating in. Read your source material. The next box there is get clarity. So when I talk about get clarity, I'm encouraging for us to be very diligent in asking questions. Get the clarity you need in order to properly execute your responsibilities. Get the clarity you need. I think a lot of times people tend not to ask questions because we don't want to feel stupid. We don't want to feel that we are incompetent. We don't want to look a certain way. And the times that we're living in, we really need to get beyond that point. I would much rather, and what I'm about to say, I'm going to tell you, it's something I have had to grow into over the last few years. I would much rather ask questions until I have clarity as to what's being expected of me. I have clarity as to what is needed from me, than to not ask questions, make assumptions, and then find out that I have totally missed the mark and have frustrated my colleagues because I didn't take the time to get clarity. So when we think again about those small details that we need to be paying attention to in order to honor our commitments, getting clarity is one of those very small details. Very small detail. Years ago, I had to drop my car off for some service, and I knew what service I needed. Pretty easy. Pull in, the mechanic puts the car up on the lift, and while they're looking around, he shouts out, "You need a rod?" And I was like, I don't need a rod. I just need for you to do what I've asked for you to do. That's the problem. And then he follows up, and I look thinking to myself, like, why is he asking me for something else I don't need? That's not what I need. I'm frustrated at that point, right? And so something said, go ask. I said, well, what exactly are you pointing to? He was like, I was just asking if you needed a rod to work. So what I heard was I needed a rod, R-O-D, but he was really offering me a ride to work. Great example of clarity. I could have missed out on a free ride versus have to catch a cab to my destination, right? Getting clarity. Getting clarity, guys, will save us an enormous amount of time and resources if we just take the time to slow down and ask additional questions to make sure that we are understanding. The next part of the slide focuses on communication. And so I don't know if there's any real additional stuff I need to say about that. Communicate, communicate, communicate. You guys have heard the saying, it is better to over communicate than to under communicate, right? Communicate, communicate, communicate. The best thing that we can do when it comes down to honoring our commitments is making sure that we're communicating our thoughts, that we're communicating ideas. We're communicating when we're frustrated or afraid. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't get upset with someone who is frustrating me, and I haven't taken the time to have a conversation with them to get clarity as to what it is that we need to be working through or working on, if I don't take the time to communicate that with them. So I don't think that that's anything that I need to really harp on, but I think it's very important that we really hear that communication is key for us addressing the small details of the projects that we need to give attention to. And then finally, I have on here, use your resources. So I have on the slide kind of this little hand and these little, that for me is kind of representing technology. Use your resources in technology, okay? Most of us, a lot of us for the most part, we're utilizing Office 365. We have iPhones, we have Androids, we have all of this technology that allows for us to kind of fill in the gap in helping us to honor our small commitments. So if answering emails in a timely fashion is just an area that you struggle, and I am one of those individuals, utilize your Office 365 and some of the benefits of that software in order to help bridge that gap. So there are some ways in that software that you can set up some automatic replies to people so that folks can see that you are on top of the communication, that you are on top of the project or the timeline that you're working on. It allows for you to be able to really take, when you're thinking about technology and utilizing it as a resource, you know, we can utilize or leverage this technology to really fill in those gaps, guys. So I use Office 365 as an example, but I challenge you guys to think about and really spend some time thinking through what are the technologies that you have at your disposal. And how are you not maximizing, all of those different resources in order to kind of fill in those gaps to help you to meet some of those small details? I think that's really important. I know that that's just a small example, but my encouragement is that I know that a lot of us have access to all of this. And I'm also hyper aware that we really don't use those things to the fullest that we could in order to kind of bridge some of these gaps. And then the next part of that little icon there is this group of people. Use your human resources. So I talked about the technology piece, but also think about, there may be some of you are saying, man, Brian, I know you're telling me use technology. I am just not tech savvy that way. And guess what? That I understand that part as well. But you have some individuals, you probably have some individuals that are around you that could help you in that particular arena. So I shared with you guys a little earlier that in my previous life at a different place of employment, I had the best team I've ever worked with in my entire life. And what made them so spectacular is that, one, we really had a great appreciation for each other's talents and gifts. And we were able to really appreciate how we all operated very differently, but also very succinctly in how we executed the projects that were before us. And so there were things that I was good at that enabled for me to also support my other team members in areas that they may not have been so good at. And it really allowed for me to really sharpen my skills and abilities in the areas that I was already good at. So you probably also have some people that are in your social circle that could be of support to you in those areas that helps you to really zero in on those small details so that you can what? Honor the commitments that you are that you're a part of. Okay. So again, what are the small details that help you honor your commitments? Again, let me reemphasize this. Reading your source materials. Okay, so if that is any type of journals or emails, just paying attention to that correspondence that allows for you to be properly ready to engage in whatever the subject matter is or the project is, be well read and versed in your topic. Two, be very deliberate and intentional about getting clarity. Do not allow your nerves or the feelings of thinking that you are going to appear a certain way by not asking questions, or by asking questions. Get the clarity that you need so that you have what you need in order to do great work. Thirdly, communicate, communicate, communicate. ask those questions, convey your ideas, share your thoughts, be a part of the dialogue. And then finally, leverage your resources. Understand what technology or resources are available to you. Begin to really tap into those resources, learn them. And then finally, also make sure that you invite into your community, utilizing those human resources as well that can help you to honor those small commitments. All right, so I'm gonna pause there for just a second, drop in the chat. Hopefully some of this is starting to kind of resonate with you guys. I realize that this isn't anything revolutionary, but it may just serve as a reminder for a few of us that sometimes there is some beauty in simplicity. And so hopefully this is kind of landing for you guys of, hey, you know, these are some areas that I can possibly fine tune in order to be more deliberate in looking at the small details and how they affect the project as a whole. All right. So we'll move on now to when should you honor your commitments? Guess what? The time is now. So it is absolutely right now. I don't think that this particular subject matter is one that can be put off. We need to be thinking about those small details and where some of those details that we need to grow into and where we need to give more attention to, we need to figure out what those are and begin to think, how do we begin to, words come to me. How do we begin to incorporate them more intentionally in our everyday planning, in our everyday interactions with others? I have on here future projects because we always know about the projects that are coming you know, in the future. So one of the things that is unique and I think is also important when we think about details is we can have a project that we're working on with a team of individuals. And from start to finish, we'll get to the end of that project and we've completed that project, right? It is done, it is finished, and everybody around you is just like, whew, I'm glad that it's over. And then you start to hear the dialogues or the water cooler conversations about what the process looked like for the individuals involved in said project. And it's been, so I've been a part of some of those big teams, and here's the rumblings that I heard. You know, things might have went a lot smoother had Sally Mae, you know, returned our emails in a timely fashion. Or, you know, gosh, I'm so glad this project is over because, you know, Bill just never seemed to be prepared with the information that we had in front of us. Or we had some chats about, gosh, you know, they were always late and had an excuse for everything, but ultimately we knew they hadn't really spent the time reading or doing their research for their part of the process. So even though the team finished the project and the goal was met, I experienced my team members really having this weight on their shoulders, just feeling exhausted by the idea of the next project. So again, we can't control everyone else, but we can control what happens and how we as individuals respond to show up, right? And again, I know that I'm talking to a bunch of leaders. You are a leader in your own respect. So we have to start with ourselves. So when we think about that, and I utilize that example, how do we begin to look at some of those areas that were problem spots for us in that process of completing that last project, begin to formalize a plan, acknowledge them, and put systems in place so that our future project, we have a full experience in celebrating our accomplishment as a team, meaning that the entire process was fun for all of us because we were diligent in some of those areas that we didn't give time and attention to before. So when should you honor your commitments? Absolutely now. And also, as you've identified some of those areas that need improvement, start to already think about the future projects that are coming up and how you can begin to prepare that those future projects will run smoother for you. All right, so now we're at the where. Where should you honor your commitments? Y'all, I tried to keep this simple, everywhere. But I think we first have to start by honoring the commitments that we've made to ourselves. So here's another question I want to throw out to you guys. What have been some small details when it comes to honoring a commitment that you've made to yourself that you've ignored? For me, About 2 years ago, I started my journey of trying to go to the gym and work out. About 30 minutes a day. And y'all, I hate working out. I hate moving unnecessarily. And before the last 2 years, the last time I ran was to the car when it was raining. So the idea of exercising was there. Well, since I started about 2 years ago, that small detail of time management has kind of gotten away from me. So there's a real world example. That's a small detail. I would allow the excuse of, oh, I've had a full plate today. So I'll get to it tomorrow, or I'll work double at my workout since I missed today. So when we think about honoring commitments, for me, I've seen some areas where I've let myself down. And if I let myself down, the question I had to ask Brian was, well, if it's that easy for me to let myself down, how easy is it for me to let down other folks, right? So I want you to kind of think about that we have to start with honoring the commitments that we've made to ourselves. The next piece of that is that it should flow over to our homes. What are the commitments that we've made to our home that we haven't followed up on? The small details of getting the laundry done, the small details of cutting the grass, the small detail of reaching out to someone and saying, hey, I need some assistance because I don't know how to mix concrete to fix a stair. Where are some of those small commitments that we begin to ignore at home? And again, I realize my questions are simplistic in nature, but they're heavy in design. They're simplistic in nature, but they're heavy in design because how we're answering, how we are honoring the commitments again to self, how we are honoring the commitments at home. Guess what? It affects work. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, it affects work. And then finally, how are we showing up at work with honoring those commitments? I think it's important for me to make sure that I point out that these small details, my list is not the end all be all. You all have small details that you probably have already been thinking through. You've already been working on them. And you can probably identify where the biggest difference you would see if just those small details begin to be adjusted. For me, it was email communication. For me, it's individuals reading source materials. It's me being mindful to make sure that I am prepared and reading source materials. Those are those small commitments. So when we talk about where, again, everywhere, but ultimately, I think it's important for us to know that we have to begin at the spot of self, of honoring commitments that we've made to ourselves, honoring the commitments that we've made to our home, and honoring the commitments that we make at work. All right, and that finally brings us to the why of it all. Why should we honor our commitments? Because God is in the details, everybody. God is in the details. You know, I'm gonna take back that have you guys heard? I'm gonna take this back, but as you guys have heard that old saying, the devil is in the details. I'm gonna rewrite that statement. I'm gonna say God is in the details. When we think about the Bible and we see those intricate details through creation and the steps that our God and King took to create this world and life and everything, we see that there was detail that happened. He was orderly and he was detailed in his execution. So we should honor our commitments because we represent the body of Christ. Okay? Why should we honor our commitments? We honor our commitments because it's also a way that we serve others. And we honor our commitments because those small details matter because they lend themselves to the overall feeling of any project that we participate in. They lend themselves to the overall feeling of any project that we participate in. So that's important. I'm going to pause there for a moment and just really allow that to kind of sink in, that God is in the details. I have participated and been a part of many conversations with individuals. And I've heard folks actually say, that's just a detail. I'm not concerned about that. I just big picture. And while at that very moment, they just may need to just see the big picture, I'm here to re-emphasize the fact that details are important. They are important. And how we care for those details, how we care for the individuals who may care about those details a little bit more, that is also important. So we honor our commitments by looking at those, taking very intentional care of them, and making sure that we honor the God that we serve through great execution of those. All right, so we're done with the 5 W's. And I went through that pretty quickly, but now it brings us to the one word that you guys are probably asking yourself, like, okay, Brian, I don't heard some of this before. How do I honor commitments? And so I've alluded to some of this, and you probably have picked up on the theme that I've been trying to kind of weave through the first several of the slides in the presentation. And if you're wondering, I know this is lunchtime, this is the last slide, but the how is very important. So I have this stat on here and it says 80%. And that stat represents that 80% of our waking hours is spent communicating. And I would like to add that we also spend that time also committing to stuff, right? So how do we honor our commitments? Very simply put, I think it's really by responsible listening. It is making sure that we are fully engaged in the conversations that we find ourselves a part of, and that we are willing to ask questions. I have this little quote at the bottom of the slide, and it says, clarity is a dance of communication. It is absolutely a dance. You guys remember those awkward moments probably at prom or homecoming, and you have your date and you try to do the latest dance step or whatever, and you're trying to kind of coordinate all those steps, right? And in that process, you might be kind of stepping on some toes and, oops, I'm sorry, excuse me, or, and you're trying to kind of get the rhythm of it all. Well, so it is with clarity, you all. It is a dance of communication. It is something that has to happen, and it's important. So, I think that when we understand that 80% of our time, our waking hours is spent doing this, hopefully that really lands on your heart to know that it's quite important. So how does this relate to managing a project, and why? Why are we talking about this? With this being our launch into the importance of details, we are launching into the fall of this year, where we are beginning to get our teams together to start planning and talking about what's coming up, what's on the calendar, and there are a lot of things that need to begin to unfold in order for us to execute. So when we think about that, I now want to pose to you all as leaders, not only is it important for us to get the project completed, but as leaders, it's also important for us to make sure that our folks that are a part of this journey with us, that they are also well cared for in that process. And so my plea with you all today is that we can care for them by making sure that we give care to the small details. For some of us as leaders, that small detail may just be leaving a note of thanks on somebody's desk. For some of us, a small detail could be saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to have the company cater lunch in today, and let's just make sure that we spend some time sharing some corny jokes, appropriate jokes, but some great jokes to allow us to laugh and to have some lightness in the room. Small details make a difference. And so this is something that is important to me. And so the fact that you guys allowed me this platform to kind of hopefully lay a foundation for some additional conversations to be started in your place of work, that excites me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Robin Roberts. She is an anchor, I believe, for ABC News, and she does like the Good Morning America show. I think I'm getting that show right. And she recently just launched this masterclass, and she had this quote that hit me like a ton of bricks. And her quote was, "Make your mess your message." So that's what I did today. My frustration is what my message is today. The importance of us looking and understanding details, how we can honor one another, how we can honor our God, and making sure that we give care and concern to those details. And that's through, again, looking at our resources, caring for our human resources, doing our due diligence to make sure that we are prepared, making sure that we are getting clarity where necessary. All of those things are important and need to be at the top of our list. So know that honoring our commitments, they do matter, and they begin, and we have to use details as our way to move forward in our personal journey of caring about the fantastic work experience that we have the charge of creating. So that concludes. I don't think I went to something else, did I? I'm gonna conclude. I'm gonna do a stop share there and open it up for questions. Did I stop sharing my screen? I think I did.
All right. I am Stephanie.
The last part I had just said thank you.
Stephanie, if you bring me up with Brian staying on, thank you so much. Brian, thank you so much for that important and powerful presentation and really important information. And I tell you, my phone and my paper is full of notes. And you know, they say I used to hear the pastors and the preachers say that if you can't say amen, say ouch. Which would translate into a lot of that was really, really resonating with me, just the details. I'm so grateful that Dr. Bowie, who is our National Executive Director for SBC 21, has assembled a team where our strengths, you know, are complemented with one another. Everyone on the team knows that our Candy Kyler is the detail person. She is the person that, you know, puts the dots behind the sentences and crosses the T's and ensures that the experience is all that it needs to be. And in my head, that really, you know, comes to leaders, as Dr. Bowie has done, to ensure that the team development is where it needs to be and that everyone is sitting in the right seat. And is it your experience oftentimes that you find that teams are cultivated, but everyone may not necessarily be sitting in the right seat? Has that been your experience, and how have you handled that?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Yes, I've had that experience, and it was sad because I saw an organization die on the vine because people were not in the right seats, right?
Yeah.
I'll go back to my original thing that I said, that I've been in the business of people. And in that business of people, first thing that I realized is that we are all in the business of people, period. We're all in the business of people. And if we don't take the necessary time and pour in the necessary resources to really get to know the folks that are assembled on the team and really do a deep dive into what they bring to the table. And sometimes some of our team members may need some assistance in articulating what they do well. We don't normally like to talk about what we're good at because we don't want to appear fill in the blank, right? But if we create a space where people know, hey, you know what? We want to hear about you. We want to know what you enjoy. How do you go about doing it, so that we can have a clear understanding about the gifts and talents that that individual brings to the table, and then we invite them to be able to utilize them. A lot of times people are raring to go, but they haven't been invited. And because they don't want to hurt anybody else's feelings, they just kind of put to the background.
Invitation is important. We do have a question from Dr. Smothers in the chat. He says, Brian, who holds you accountable to maintain the boundaries that you have presented?
Who holds me accountable to maintain the boundaries that I've presented?
Today.
Well, you know, that's from team members.
Mm.
Okay. So I have a couple of colleagues that I have been very deliberate in inviting into a closer circle than probably other colleagues to say, hey, here are some areas that I'm needing to develop in. And I want to present a welcome mat for you to check in with me on a regular basis and say, Brian, how are you doing with making sure that you're prepared for a meeting that you have to go into? How are you doing with your responsiveness with things that people may need from you? So that accountability has come from individuals that, one, I prayed over and asked the Lord to kind of show me who are those individuals. And those people are also folks who I have seen be really excellent in doing that. So I'm also able to learn and watch and grow from the example that they're leading.
And I think that that is really critical. And I just want all of the participants in today's webinar to know, just hang out with us for the next, 5 minutes or so. We have about 5 minutes, and it's some important information that I want to leave you with. And I also want to be able to do exactly what you did in terms of challenging people at the very beginning about what it is that you wanted to get out of this and what would be your next steps. And SBC 21 is here to help leaders and lay to walk alongside with them for their next steps. And so we don't want you to think that you are alone in your next steps. We just want you to commit to taking a next step. And so, as we look at, what this really means in terms of the teaching and the development that we are trying to share with you, what it looks like is that, this webinar, all of our Leadership Forward series is on the SBC 21 YouTube channel. And so you could just go to YouTube, or Stephanie will drop it in the chat for you to have. And if there are any other questions, we have time to take a couple questions, but Stephanie will drop our YouTube channel in the chat, and subscribe to that channel, because it's a ton of resources and information there that you can then have your team members. When you have your staff meeting, slot 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something to take this presentation and others that are part of the YouTube channel and incorporate it into themes. Our leadership forums are designed to do just that, so that you could always have some development happening in your team meetings. And we're happy to help and assist you with that. But you said something that I have a question that's in the chat, so I'm not going to ask mine. I'm just going to get this one right here. How can you help laity speakers to be able to speak in church as leaders? So Ms. Lee is asking the question about how to help laity speakers to be able to speak in church as leaders.
To speak in church as leaders?
Yes.
Oh.
Want to say more about that question, Ms. Lee? Are you asking how can we help in the preparation of that or improve their ability to speak? So just say a little more about that, and maybe you have a general answer for that, Brian.
Okay.
So as I get more clarity on that question, I want to let you know that there are a couple things that I still would like for you to do also, is that, again, these are monthly webinars. We've switched to lunch and learn. I want you to invite 5 people to lunch and learn with you next month. We meet on the 3rd Thursdays right here on this channel. You can always go to sbc21.org and you will see the next session. And guess what? It's yours truly. So we'll be talking about engaging in social justice, how to create the right social justice initiative for your local congregation, how to, connect in your communities for that. So I invite you to put it on your calendar for October the 19th and come back and hang out with me for an hour. I'll have some exciting information to share and some takeaways on the ABCs of putting together your social justice ministry in your church, and have some people to speak with us on that. So thank you for listening for that. Also, currently we are in a resource program with United Methodist Communications, and that link, we'll put that link in the chat to where you could go. We have join us for a 7-day prayer challenge in conjunction with #BUMC. So we are working on that. And so we're super excited about all of that. But the question back at hand, Brian, thank you, Stephanie, for putting that up, is she wants to know how we can help leaders, lay speakers prepare to be better prepared when it's their turn to speak in church.
I think one of the recommendations I would give is having what I consider to be a sounding board. Can we assemble some folks that can spend some time with those individuals to hear the messages that they're preparing? Right. That's a great way for them to be able to identify if there's any holes in the research or the topic or the subject matter that they're presenting on, so that they can make sure that they address some of those on the front end. The other thing I would encourage is that if you have a group of laity speakers who are speaking on a regular basis, nothing is better than having an opportunity to break bread together, have a meal, and have a discussion around what are some of the things that they've been pondering. What are some of the things that is causing a rub in their own spirit that they've been thinking and processing through? I find that if we spend some time with some of that subject matter, one, we're naturally passionate about it because it has rubbed us in a certain kind of way. And two, we're excited to learn more about it because we're passionate about it, right? I think all too often, sometimes we find ourselves possibly having or hosting dialogues or conversations or teachings on subject matter that just really doesn't excite us a whole heck of a lot. And we just find ourselves committing ourselves to something that we probably shouldn't have and should have said no, but we committed ourselves to it, and it lacks the energy in order to capture and to captivate people. So that's how I would answer that question. Provide a sounding board so that we can have an opportunity to work together to see where there may be some gaps and help that individual fill those gaps. And then two, make sure that we are being very deliberate to hear from those individuals who are speaking on a regular basis about the things that is causing a rub in their spirit, and to encourage them to explore those further.
Thank you so much for that. And Ms. Lee, you typed in something before. I had made a note to perhaps make that a leadership forward, to develop a speaker training and speaker enhancement for laities as a part of the leadership forward. And I could pass that along to Candy. And thank you for even bringing that up as well. And Ms. Norwood definitely said that Toastmasters is a great communications building program, and it absolutely is. And it's a helpful environment to learn in. You know, what my takeaway as we come to a close, my takeaway is the fact that what am I going to commit to for myself, that my who, what, when, where, what am I gonna, what is my next? And you talked about it, it's exercise. You know, it's something that we all need to do more of. And so write that down and put that on your board and begin to affirm that you are going to do more of that thing. And so for me, definitely, I want to commit to myself that I will exercise more. There are a lot of things happening with SBC 21 as we come to a close. And so right now, the team is in Pennsylvania for the Racial Ethnic Summit that has been planned for the leaders in the Pennsylvania Annual Conference. And so they will be over the next couple of days until Saturday. They will be teaching and training the leaders up in the Pennsylvania area. And so if you and your annual conference is interested in the SBC 21 team and us bringing in and helping to cultivate a teaching and development strategy in your annual conference or your local church context, give us a call. Let us know. This is what we do. So, you know, with our collaborative coaching network, with our national network of young adults, with our Black Church Matters, with the Office of Social Justice and Mass Incarceration, utilize us. We are the resource that could come out and help bring some cultural and contextual context to your leadership and development to help inspire and nurture growth and community development in your congregation. So with that said, I want to say thank you to Dr. Bowie. I'm not sure if they have arrived, if they are off the plane, if they're listening, but I want to say thank you for listening to us today. Brian, thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Welcome
for coming with us today. And it looks like the team I'm saying hi to the team, y'all. They just landed. There's Rev Kev. So you guys have a great job. We send the takeaway is to avoid the details, start with communication, and we're so grateful. So this webinar will be available probably not this week, but it will be available definitely next week. Hey, Miss Carolyn. Hello, Dr. Stryker. I'm the only one that's holding down the fork and not on the plane, but I'm excited about that because the last thing is that the reason why I'm not there is because SBC 21 is launching our Build a Better You tour. And so our Build a Better You tour is in partnership with United Healthcare, and it is a day party with a purpose that we're doing all across the country. So we'll be in Alabama with Dr. Stryker. We kick off Saturday here in Dallas. And then we're going to be at Impact in Atlanta, Georgia on October the 21st. We're going to be at St. John's downtown Houston, October the 28th. Birmingham is October the 14th. So this tour is all about how we age well. It's a mental health, mind, body, and spirit tour that we have the ability to be alongside with United Healthcare. You can learn more about that as well on our website, sbc21.org. If you're in any of those markets, it's a free day party. It's brunch and lunch in any of those markets. You're welcome to register. We'd love to have you to come out, and it's all about aging well. So with that said, I don't want to hold you too much longer. It is 1:03 p.m. You can check us out and make sure that you are logging and joining our newsletter so you can get all of this amazing information at sbc21.org, and have a blessed day and get back to work and building business etiquette. Thank you so much. Be blessed, and we will see you later.